Hey everyone, Eric here, and welcome to the 5th Doctor Era Reviewed. So, over the last week, I have marathoned the entirety of Peter Davison's tenure as the Doctor from Season 19 all the way up to Season 21, and now I'm going to give my thoughts on the 5th Doctor as a character, as a person, and on the quality of his stories, and on the story arc throughout all 3 of his seasons. So, as a character, I really like the Fifth Doctor. He is a pacifist type character. He tries to find the best solution for everyone, the most peaceful one, so that everyone lives, I suppose, and everyone can walk away at least somewhat satisfied with the outcome. But the odds pretty much never work out in his favor. Pretty much in any Fifth Doctor story, a lot of the Fifth Doctor stories, rather, I should say, something goes wrong, and in some cases, somebody always dies. In some cases, somebody always dies. That is a great explanation. The Fifth Doctor is, in general, a very unfortunate Doctor compared to the rest. He lacks the leadership skills of the Fourth Doctor, and he can't quite take control of a situation, whether that be an argument in the TARDIS, or convincing someone on whatever planet he's landed on to let him deal with the situation. Whereas with the Fourth Doctor, he could stop an argument in its tracks, he could take control of the situation, and stop it really very quickly. But with this Doctor, it's not quite the same thing. In the case of an argument in the TARDIS, it's because his companions see him as more of a peer than as a superior or a father figure, because he looks so young. Now, if it were the Second Doctor or the First Doctor, then they would be more in control. They would be a little more respected because they look older and they carry themselves in a way that suggests that they demand respect. That goes for the Fourth Doctor as well. But despite all of that stuff, I still enjoyed watching the Fifth Doctor stories, or most of them. There were a few duds in the mix, but honestly, for the most part, I really enjoyed watching the Fifth Doctor. Now, I feel like most people would say that the Fifth Doctor's era was mostly average, or at least in the book the Doctors are in, which I showcased in my collection video. The authors said, as they were reviewing each Doctor's era, one of them said that if you go through the entire Fifth Doctor era, you'll find some good stories, some bad ones, but a lot of them that are just okay. And I'm gonna have to disagree with that. I found that there were a lot more stories that I thought were great, were above average, and worth watching again, than were average or below average. There were a bunch of ones that I thought were really great, like Four to Doomsday, Kinda, Earthshock, Time Flight, Arc of Infinity, of course Caves of Androzani, The Five Doctors, Frontios. I'm sure I'm going to have people who disagree with me in the comments and say like, oh, Four to Doomsday is rubbish or something like that, but I honestly really enjoy most Fifth Doctor stories. There were only a few that I thought were just average or not very average, like no, not quite Enlightenment, but more Terminus, Warriors of the Deep, I suppose, and the only duds I remember not liking or whatever include The Visitation. I thought that was just sort of a generic historical with aliens plot. The King's Demons, absolutely nothing of substance happens over those two parts. The two-parters in the Fifth Doctor era, aside from Black Orchid, seem either rushed or like filler. In the case of the King's Demons, I've already said there's nothing of substance that happens at all in there. It's basically just a king here, a swordsman here. He turns out to be the master. The king is actually a shape-shifting robot, and yeah, all that's good and all, but nothing important happens. I mean, yeah, Chameleon ends up playing an important part in Planet of Fire, which, by the way, the cliffhanger to Part 3 of Planet of Fire, I had to take a moment after that and think, what was that? And what do I think of that? Go watch Planet of Fire. It's on the internet. Daily Motion, whatever. The cliffhanger to Part 3 is... I don't know how to think about it. But anyway, overall, I think the quality of the Fifth Doctor stories was, for the most part, really good. A few average ones, maybe one or two that were below average or not worth watching. But, I still think it is very much worth it to go through all 20 of his stories in order, and yeah, I think that's just about it. Oh, right, the story arc, I forgot about that one, almost. So yeah, this is a story arc, pretty much, where, nothing seems to go right for the Fifth Doctor. I mean, the TARDIS never seems to go where he wants it to go. Like, over season 19, he's constantly trying to get Tegan back to 1981, but it never does, and Tegan ends up getting fired from her job, and she ends up traveling with the Doctor, through season 20 and most of season 21. And, yeah, even though, I can now see why some people really don't like Adric, especially in Four to Doomsday. As good of a story as that was, Adric practically, ruined it for me, but still, his death was very unfortunate. I'm shaking right now, because, so emotional and so sad, just the whole thing. The Doctor had to stand by and watch as the Silurians and Sea Devils were killed off by this chemical. He had to kill the Daleks, and in all of this, the one that probably got me the most was the Caves of Androzani. And, well, because it's the last story of his era, of course it has to be a good one. And I thought it was really great. First of all, let me just get that out of the way. I really liked the Caves of Androzani. And oh my gosh, the end, and like, my heart was like pounding at the end, honestly. Throughout like most of it, like part 2, 3, and 4, I was like, I was rooting for him to win. Just one win for this Doctor, and it would all be worth it. All these people who have died, and he couldn't do a thing. But if he just needed one victory before he went, and, glad that victory was Perry. And that, yeah. I have no words for that, really. That was wonderful. Yeah, so that's why my review of World War III was delayed. That's why this review was delayed, because I was marathoning the Fifth Doctor. And you know what? I do not regret it. That was an awesome time from start to finish, for the most part. Season 21, felt like it kind of dragging on a bit at the end, but you know what? It was worth it to see the build-up to that regeneration. So, that was my thoughts on the Fifth Doctor's era. Let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. And until next time, goodbye.